So, welcome to another Stillness from the Shed. It's been a beautiful day and you join me and Treacle right here down at the bottom of the garden just for a few minutes to look at God's Word together. I wonder what the biggest challenge that you've ever faced in your life has been. As a youngster growing up in southeast London, I wasn't a bad teenager, but I often was a stupid one. I was always the kid who would never say no to a challenge. Phil, see if that dog bites. Phil, drink that milk, see whether it's gone off. Phil, do you think that wall's safe to climb? Go on, have a go, find out. Now you might have thought, as I got older, that some sense might have been set in my mind due to the painful memories of all those challenges and attempts. However, a number of years ago, on what was expected to be the hottest bank holiday weekend for years, an American couple who were attending the church that I was pastor of at the time mentioned that they were going to go to a beautiful lake with a group from the church. It was just outside Shrewsbury, just for a bit of fun, just for a couple of hours. And I was invited to go. Then the husband stopped me and said, "Hey man, have you tried water skiing? It's a real man's sport." I'd once tried windsurfing, only to discover that whilst I could get up on the board and go really fast, I could only go fast in one direction. And I ended up being picked up by a rescue boat about a mile offshore. So how hard, though, could water skiing be? Well, all my exuberant, all my foolish pride came flooding back, and the next thing I know, there I am, standing on the edge of what turned out to be a freezing cold day and a freezing cold lake, watching with amazement as my American friend, who later told me that he'd been water skiing from the age of 6, flying across the water, doing jumps and somersaults and skiing, as fast as he could. Then it was my turn. Everything in me was saying, don't do it. But since there was a group of our young men there, and it was kind of right there, they were eagerly awaiting. I had to. Just like a teenager, I couldn't walk away from a challenge. So I got into the skis and flopped into the icy cold water. The instructions seemed pretty straightforward. Just hang on. At which point, I thought my poor little arms were going to be pulled out of their sockets as the powerful boat took off and picked up speed. I went from bent knees to almost standing, and just like the windsurfing, I am now flying in a straight line down this lake. But then the inevitable happened. We needed to turn round at the bottom of the lake and head back again, and at which point my skis had an argument. One went one way, one went the other. I lost my balance, and sure enough, I face planted the water, which was like a block of ice. The last thing I remember being screamed at me from the people in the boat again and again was the same. Push up from your knees and stand. In his letter to the Thessalonians, the Apostle Paul told the church to pray. In fact, he told them to cry out to God without ceasing. 1 Thessalonians 5 verses 16 to 18. What the apostle was encouraging those Christians to do was to be in a perpetual spirit of prayer, constantly communing with God. However, did you know there are also times when God wants us to push up from our knees, stand and follow him? Shortly after Pharaoh in the Old Testament let Israel leave Egypt, he hardened his heart one more time, and he sent his army after the Jews, trying to get them back into captivity. When Moses hears the reports that the Egyptian army was pursuing them, he cried out to God for deliverance. And he did what any sane Christian would do in that time of distress. He prayed. When facing those things, just like we have in these last few months. But suddenly, God commands him. Moses, push up from your knees and go forward. Stop praying and move where I want you to. It's what we read in Exodus chapter 14. And the Lord said to Moses, Why are these people crying out to me? Tell the Israelites to get up and to follow me. Prayer is absolutely vital for Christians. However, sometimes prayer can become an excuse not to trust God, not to act on what God has already said. Prayer sounds spiritual, but you know, sometimes it can cover up our deepest fears about moving in the direction God wants us to. We need to stand on him. And when we rely upon God, he prepares the way for you and I, whatever that way might be, to become sharers of the hope that we have to a world that so desperately needs it, particularly in times like this. Will you this week be prepared to push up from your knees, stand up for Jesus, sharing the promises, sharing the joy that you have, the good news with your family, your friends, your neighbours, asking God what he would have you do and where he would have you go in the normal, the new normal that's coming. I'm so pleased that you've been able to join me this Wednesday evening, and I hope to see you, particularly on Sunday morning at the Cellar Church Online, which will be followed by our brand new fellowship time, TCC Extra, where you can grab a coffee, where you can stand or sit or meet together with loads of our friends from the church and from around the world in a Zoom room. So watch out for that. I hope that you have a really good week. I hope you know the presence of God and that your prayer life will continue to grow, but more than that you will come to a point where you say, Lord, here I am. Send me, use me in whatever way you want to. Have a great week. Thanks so much for joining me.